Most mobile games don't survive. At least not nowadays. They launch, they trend for a few weeks, maybe even a couple months if they're lucky, and then they disappear. The servers stopped updating, and eventually the mobile game community moves on to bigger and better things. And nobody really talks about them ever again. That's just how mobile gaming works now. Games are built fast, monetized fast, and forgotten fast. Most of them aren't even designed to last. They're designed to squeeze attention, squeeze money, and move on to the next thing. It's mass production at its finest. You've seen it 100 times. A game blows up on TikTok, everyone downloads it, and 2 months later, it's gone. Like, does anybody unironically still play Block Blast? Let's be so for real. Mobile games today are disposable by design, so when one actually lasts, it feels different. Every once in a while, there's a mobile game that just refuses to die. Not because of marketing, not because of hype, but simply because people keep playing it. Update after update, it does not matter. New players keep coming in, and old players never really leave. It doesn't matter how bad the mobile gaming scene gets. It doesn't matter how many trends come and go. The game just simply refuses to die. And when you break it down, it's not luck. It's design. This game quietly nails every pillar that gives a mobile game longevity. And once you see how it does that, you'll understand why it's still here. And why it isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But what is this mystery game? It's not a brand new release, it's not a riding trend, and it's definitely not something that looks like it should still be relevant in 2026. Let me introduce you, my friends, to the Battle Cats. This game was released over a decade ago. For context, Clash Royale was released globally on March 2nd, 2016, not even 10 years old yet. And while Clash Royale consistently struggles to satisfy its player base, Battle Cats has been consistently satisfying its player base. Now, what is the Battle Cats? Well, on paper, it's a tower defense game, but in reality, it is so much more than that. I'll explain more, don't worry. At its core, the game is about deploying cat units from your base and pushing across a side-scrolling battlefield to destroy the enemy base. You earn money both passively and from defeating enemy units. Basically, your role as a player is to make sure you select the right units, send them out at the right time, and properly manage resources so you don't overcommit. The game uses simple tap controls but builds depth through unit variety and progression. You can upgrade and evolve cats, unlock new ones through the gacha system, or experiment with different lineups as stages get harder and introduce new enemies and mechanics. But this is just the bare bones of the game. In reality, this game is so much more than the sum of its parts. Because when you break it down piece by piece, you start to see why this game doesn't fade away like everything else. In my other video, I laid out the framework for what actually makes a great mobile game. So now let's use that same framework to break down the Battle Cats and understand why it's still here while so many other mobile games have disappeared. Enjoyability is the foundation. If a game isn't fun right away, nothing else matters. From the very first moment, Battle Cats understands that. You open the game and you're playing almost instantly. It hooks you right away. There's no friction between you and the gameplay. The second you tap, something happens, and you're already engaged. The game is built so fun comes first and everything else follows naturally. You're allowed to play first and figure things out as you go. The game does not overwhelm you at the start. The controls are incredibly simple, and that's one of the game's biggest strengths. It is literally so self-explanatory. At the start, you tap the cat spawns, you tap the cat cannon, it fires. Very easy. Because the controls stay out of the way, your focus shifts from decision making and execution. You're thinking about timing, positioning, and strategy rather than struggling on how to make something happen. And yes, while it is simple at first, it still feels smooth and natural from the very beginning. It creates this very enjoyable way to start the game and makes you want more. And best of all, instead of explaining everything up front, the game lets you learn naturally. After being Korea, you move on to Japan, and each level introduces new enemies, new features, and best of all, new cats. It's kind of like a throwback to the original Plants vs. Zombies, where you would unlock a new cat every stage. It really keeps it engaging. That process makes the improvement feel earned. You don't feel like the game is holding your hand, but you also never feel lost. Each mistake teaches you something, and each small success feels satisfying. Because learning is woven into gameplay, the curiosity stays high. You want to keep going, not because you're told to, but because you genuinely want to see what comes next. Like, I remember how excited I was to unlock these funny, cool cat units for the first time. It was just so engaging to the little me. And it just keeps getting better. Even though the game gets more complicated over time, it also gets more fun. Like, for example, discovering the game's gambling system. I meant the gacha system. And don't be afraid, Battle Cats actually has a good one. Like, ask any Battle Cats player, they'll tell you how addicting it is rolling for the next uber rare. It's just a legendary feeling seeing that you finally got your first rare cat. Like, not rare cat, you know what I mean, like actually rare cat. As a beginner, the loop of pulling new units, upgrading them, and pushing through tougher and tougher stages is genuinely fun because the game makes progression feel rewarding. You don't just play it once, you come back over and over again. You always feel like you're making progress, even when you lose, and that feeling is what naturally leads to the next pillar. Enjoyability gets you in the door. Replayability is why you stay. This is where Battle Cats quietly proves it refuses to fade away. Sure, at its core, the gameplay never really changes. You deploy units, they march forward, and chaos unfolds, but what does change is the context around it. The game introduces new mechanics that really elevate the quality of the gameplay. And while yes, it does get more complicated, it's complicated in a good way, in an interesting way. Kinda like how a chess game gets more complicated over time, but that doesn't make it less interesting. If anything, it makes it more. The upgrade system with cats is an excellent example of this. When a cat hits level 10, it usually comes with a change to their stats and/or abilities. But more importantly, it changes the look of the unit, which is actually really interesting. Like, look at the Nekalugas. They go from this to this. But the really interesting part comes later. Once a cat reaches level 30, you can use specific resources to evolve it. That's when the design genuinely starts to shine, and new abilities unlock that completely changes how the unit plays. The appearance of the unit also shifts dramatically. Like, they're called true forms, and they just look so cool. Like, just look at them. And the key thing is, the game doesn't hand this power to you. You have to commit. You have to replay stages, save material, and invest time. That delay makes the payoff feel earned, not bought. But anyway, this really gives you the motivation to grind and replay the game, to unlock the true forms of these units and use it in battle. Now, of course, that's just one of the reasons why you'd replay the game, but for the actual levels, Battle Cats gives you so many options for stages to play that you will never really run out. Legend stages are the best example of this. There are so many stages, each with varying difficulty and rewards, that you never run out of reasons to play. Enemy combination shifts. Stage mechanics force different approaches. Units that felt useless earlier suddenly become essential later on. And the game's constant updates keep you interested. Even for long time players, there is always a new stage to beat, a new unit to unlock, or a new achievement to accomplish. Replayability here doesn't come from reinventing the game every update. It comes from using the same mechanics in smarter ways. A stage isn't hard just because the enemies have more health. It's hard because maybe timing matters more, maybe resource management matters more, or maybe the game introduces one small twist that completely changes how you approach the level. It keeps the experience fresh without ever feeling unfamiliar. Another one of the biggest strengths of this game is how much freedom it gives you to experiment. You can try unconventional setups, you can use strange unit combinations, you can approach the same stage multiple times with different strategies and still get something new out of it. And failure doesn't feel like a dead end, it feels more like feedback. You don't just think, oh, I lost because the game is so dumb. You think, okay, how could I change my lineup to better approach this level? That encourages curiosity, and curiosity is one of the strongest drivers of replayability. You don't log in just because you have to. You log back in because you want to try something different. This is why the game lasts. Because when replayability is built on learning, experimentation, and steady progression, it doesn't burn out. It doesn't rely on tricks to keep attention. It earns it naturally. You come back because the game still has something to offer you, not because it forces you to. And that's why replayability in Battle Cats isn't just strong, it's sustainable. But here's the thing about replayability. If you want players to keep coming back without getting frustrated, the next pillar becomes absolutely essential. Balance is the pillar you don't always notice right away, but you feel it constantly, especially as you progress. When the balance is right, the game feels challenging but fair. When it's wrong, everything starts to fall apart. And another reason why the Battle Cats has lasted so long is because its balance is built around fairness, not chaos. Well, it is chaotic, but balanced chaos, you know what I'm trying to say. The game can be hard, sometimes extremely hard, but that difficulty isn't random. Most challenges, especially at the start, exist to teach you something. A new enemy introduces a mechanic, a new stage forces a different lineup, sometimes, and a loss isn't the game saying you're not good enough, it's saying your approach needs work. With the exception of treasures, but we don't really talk about that. A well-balanced game doesn't funnel everyone into one correct way to play. Here, there are multiple approaches to solving problems, different unit combinations, different timing choices, different priorities. That flexibility is crucial for long-term enjoyment. It keeps stages from feeling solved forever. Even after clearing a level once, there's always a different way to approach it. Guides and Battle Cats often recommend multiple different lineups for one stage because, well, they will all work provided provided you have the proper timing. As you improve, the game improves with you. Later stages demand better timing, deeper understanding, and smarter decisions. But the fundamentals remain consistent. You're not learning an entirely new game every few hours. You're building on what you already know. That steady scaling keeps the challenge engaging without becoming overwhelming. But the best part of Battle Cats is not the existence of futures, but rather the absence of one. This future is something plaguing the game industry, especially the mobile one. No surprise, it's pay to win. Now, to make it clear, I am not against transactions in games. Life's a sandwich. No matter which way you flip it, the bread will come first. So it's respectable that you want that bank. But when it starts to feel like you have to spend money to keep up, that's when it gets out of hand. I understand if you want a quick progression boost, maybe you need that little loot box. But when it's a necessity, it's just awful, man. Free-to-play players should have the same opportunity as paying players. Nothing should be hidden behind a paywall or just made so expensive that you have to spend money. And Battle Cats does this beautifully. The game monetizes without punishing patience. The game never treats free players like second-class citizens. Everything in the game, with the exception of limited units, can be earned by just playing consistently. Rare tickets, cat food, experience, and even powerful units are handed out through events, daily rewards, login bonuses, or special stages. The game constantly gives you chances to progress, and they feel pretty fair. Honestly, this game gives away so many rewards, like through Cat Scratcher or the Wildcat slots, which is just free cat food. Let's be so for real. 1,000 free cat food for every roll, guaranteed. That's just amazing. What really matters is that nothing essential is hidden behind a paywall. You're never blocked from content because you didn't pay. A free-to-play player who understands the game's mechanics and stages can reach the same milestone as someone who spends, just at a slower pace. But you know what the thing is? There's literally no reason to spend money at all. The gacha system is seeded, which means your future rolls already exist in a fixed order. Players figured this out a long time ago, and you can literally track your rolls ahead of time. As I mentioned before, there's a gacha system, and there are these things called battle cats. Chests, the equivalent is capsules, and basically you can see what you're going to get in your capsules ahead of time. Which means instead of pulling randomly and hoping for an Uber, you can see exactly when one is coming and which banner you should pull to get it. If an Uber is 10 rolls away, you know it, and if the next one is bad, you skip it. It turns gambling into strategy. Now, if you're like me, I think it's more fun, honestly, not to track your rolls. You get the high highs and the low lows, but that's the beauty of it. You get to choose. You can play it safe and plan everything out, or you can ride the highs and lows of gacha. But it's more tough if you don't track roll. Let's be so honest. Because of this, spending money loses its power. Buying cat food doesn't magically improve your odds because those odds are already online somewhere. It just makes the game feel ever the more free to play, and it really solidifies the game's balance. When you step back and look at it, the Battle Cat succeeds because everything works in harmony. The difficulty is tough but fair. Progression is earned, and monetization never breaks that balance. You're free to play patiently, experiment, and improve without the game constantly nudging you to open your wallet. That sense of fairness is a huge reason why this game still holds up after so many years. But even then, fairness alone isn't enough. A game can be perfectly balanced and still fade away if it doesn't feel engaging to play, and that's when the next pillar comes in. But before we continue, if you're watching this far in the video, that probably means you're enjoying it. And if you are, and even if you're not, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to never miss a video, and leave a comment on any video ideas you want me to cover or any opinions you have on this video. With all that said and done, let's get straight back into it. Audio and visuals aren't just about looking good, they're part of the experience. And this is another reason why Battle Cats has lasted so long. It committed to the style and owned it completely. The visuals are simple, weird, and unapologetic. They have that anime-ish design with a playful kick to it. Flat colors, thick outlines, absurd character designs. Nothing looks accidental. If you slow down the frames, you can see all the little details the devs put in. You can tell instantly what's happening on screen. Enemies stand out. Units are readable. Attacks are visible. Knockbacks feel obvious. Even during chaotic moments, you understand what's going on. That clarity matters in a game where timing and positioning are everything. By making the visuals so simple and clear, you know exactly what is happening. As for the actual visuals, movement and animation do a lot of heavy lifting here. When a unit attacks, it feels sort of deliberate. When an enemy is knocked back, the animation sells the force. And when your unit gets knocked back, the animation is so goofy and powerful enough to make you really kind of feel it. Those small details give weight to the actions. Even after hundreds of battles, attacks still feel satisfying because the game never feels stiff or lifeless. There's a lot of vibrancy in this just amazingly well-designed game? Yeah. The sound design reinforces everything you see. Hits have punch. That little crunch sound that happens when you hit something is simple yet so charming. Deploying units feels responsive because that sound confirms your action instantly. That constant feedback loop keeps the game engaging on a sensory level. But the music is just wonderful. The music does exactly what it needs to do. It sets the tone without overpowering the gameplay. It enhances tension during difficult moments and keeps things light when chaos breaks loose. It doesn't demand attention, but it adds personality. And the music, of course, is really, really good. They kind of have this sort of like orchestral, cinematic kind of music, and it's just excellent. That balance is important. The music complements the absurdity and intensity without becoming annoying or repetitive over long play sessions. Plus, there are so many OSTs that you can't really ever get bored. Like, I think every chapter has a different OST, and some stages have different musics. I don't really know how it works. If you have ever heard the original OST, Rush, or even Into the Future, you'll know how much effort the developers put into it. The audio and visuals work together so well that it doesn't make the game simply more aesthetic, rather it adds to the experience. When these two things come together, the foundation is set, and from that foundation, the game builds the pillar that defines everything else. Creativity is what separates a good game from a legendary one. It's the difference between something you play for a while and something you actually remember. And this is where the Battle Cats truly earns its place. From the moment you start playing, it's clear that this game wasn't built by accident. Every part of it feels intentional. Even though the game is made by a company, it's not polished in some corporate way, but handcrafted in a human one. Cats and enemies look ridiculous. It's funny, absurd, and confident enough to never explain itself. The game never apologizes for being weird. It leans into it completely. When a game knows what it is, it feels cohesive. Everything fits. Nothing feels random or copied just to fill space. The tone stays consistent from the visuals to the sound effects to the enemy design. Creativity here doesn't come from reinventing everything. It comes from reshaping familiar ideas into something that feels new. The mechanics are simple and the structure is straightforward. It's the way that everything is presented that makes it feel fresh. Enemies behave in ways you have not really seen in other games. Stages surprise you without really breaking the rules. Battle Cats takes the good parts of other games and remixes them to make something new, something exciting. For example, you've seen the chess thousands of times before, but the Battle Cats capsule takes that idea and makes it into something really unique and, let's be honest, fun. This is just one example. I could name many more if I want. It feels familiar, yet unmistakably unique. You can sense the influence of other games in its structure and mechanics, but none of it feels borrowed in a lazy way. Everything is filtered through the game's own identity until it becomes something distinctly its own. At no point it feels like it's trying to imitate something else. It knows exactly what it is, and that confidence is rare. What other game combines simple tower defense mechanics with surreal humor, intentionally crude art, and enemies that look like they came from a fever dream, and still makes it all feel cohesive? Battle Cat's creativity shows up in the smallest places. Unit descriptions, animations, enemy behavior, even the pacing of stages. Everything carries a semblance of personality. It feels like someone actually cared about how each place fits into the whole. That attention to detail builds a connection between the player and the game. You're not just progressing, you're exploring a world that has its own charm. All that adds up to something rare. You're not progressing through levels or unlocking stronger units. You're exploring a world that feels alive in its own strange way. A world with charm, personality, and a clear creative voice behind it. And that's why the game sticks. Not because it's perfect, but because it feels like someone genuinely cared about making it memorable. A lot of mobile games don't fail because they're broken. They fail because they're forgettable. So many of them chase whatever is popular at the moment, copying the same art styles, the same progression systems, the same menus and interfaces. After a few days, they all just start to blur together. You stop remembering which game you're playing and just remember the monotonous, boring routine. And you don't want a game to be boring. That's what makes the Battle Cat stand out. It doesn't feel designed to fit into a category or ride a trend. It feels designed to be itself. Even when it borrows familiar mechanics, it wraps them in a tone and personality that no other game could pull off. While many games feel like products built to hold your attention, this one feels like a world that's built to almost be explored. This is why the game survives. Trends fade. Graphics age, systems get copied and replaced, but creativity holds up. A game with personality doesn't disappear when something newer comes along. People come back because the game feels like itself, not like a product, not like a template, and not like a cheap copycat. It feels like something made with intention. And that's why the game isn't just remembered, it's respected. There's one last reason why the Battle Cats feels different from so many other mobile games. It works offline, and that matters a lot more than people think. Being able to play without an internet connection sounds small, but it completely changes how a game fits into real life. You can play on a commute, on a plane, in a tunnel, anywhere. You don't need perfect Wi-Fi. You don't need servers to behave. The game is just there. Many other games want players to have an internet connection so that they can squeeze in as many ads as possible, but Battle Cats does not do that. It respects you, the player, and only gives you ads if you deliberately ask for them in exchange for cat food. It just makes the game so much more trustworthy. It just truly shows that this game isn't greedy. It's not trying to be annoying. It just wants you to have a fun experience. And hey, if they can make some money on the way, that's great for them. But Ponos, the creator of Battle Cats, truly does care about the player's experience, and this just kind of sums it all up. Of course, offline play doesn't make the game better on its own, but it completes the picture. Enjoyability makes it fun. Replayability makes it engaging. Balance makes it fair. Audios and visuals make it interesting, and creativity makes it memorable. However, offline play is what makes it truly dependable. When all of these things come together, you get a game that doesn't just survive trends, it outlasts them. And when you look at it from a more comprehensive view, the reason why this game has survived for so long becomes pretty clear. It isn't about luck, it isn't about nostalgia, and it definitely isn't about trend chasing. It's design. It's enjoyable from the very first tap. It stays interesting the longer you play. It feels fair even when it's hard. It's interesting to look and listen to, and it has a clear identity that you can recognize instantly. And of course, it respects the fact that people have real lives, not perfect Wi-Fi and endless free time. That combination is rare, especially nowadays. Most mobile games burn bright then disappear. This one just stays, quietly, consistently, year after year. New updates, new players, and the same core experience that made it work in the first place. And that's why it refuses to die. Not because it's the biggest, not because it's the flashiest, but because it's built on fundamentals that don't age. It's thoughtfully and intricately designed while still being genuinely fun to play. If more mobile games were designed like this, the mobile gaming scene would look completely different. Games could still make money without draining players. They could still evolve without losing their identity. They could actually earn long-term trust. But the truth is, almost none of them do. That's why this game stands by itself. Not because it's perfect, but because it respects the player in a way that the industry abandoned. While others chase trends and burn out, this one just keeps going. It doesn't need reinvention. It doesn't need hype. It was built right from the start. It stands alone and truly is the mobile game that will never die.